Good evening, traders. It's Mark here from the Day Trading Room. The time is coming up to 10 to 7 in the evening on a Sunday evening, London time, 14th of November. And it's been a while since I've uploaded a video. I think my last video was on the 9th or 10th of November. I did record one earlier in the week for Monday and Tuesday's action, or was it Tuesday and Wednesdays? But I failed to upload it for some reason. It couldn't get uploaded, so I'll try that again. If not, I'll have to redo one. Um, Not had much luck with computers at the moment either. TradeStation lost all my workspaces and desktops and indicators, so I had to reinstall it. Fortunately, I've got them all backed up, so hopefully should be back to normal trading layout for me. Anyway, let's run through Friday's trades. Great day for traders, really good day, really good levels tested, and I had an idea it was going to be a good day going into Friday because of the overnight range. The overnight range was well over 100 points, about 120 points. Now, when you see a range that large overnight, you've got potential for there to be some good levels tested in the day. And what you can do is you can hold your trades knowing that the market has already tested quite wide range overnight, so there is potential for the daily range to be quite wide as well. It's the same way I approach it if the overnight range is narrow. If the overnight range is sort of 50 points or so and there's no gap, then I will look for range trades, extremes coming back into the mean. Whereas if we get a large overnight range like we did on Friday, then I'm going to look for trades to run a little bit longer. I'm going to look for further targets. I'm perhaps not going to scale out so quickly. I'm not going to be so eager to scale out. I'm going to look for it to run just that little bit further because the market's already been testing extreme levels overnight, so it's not going to be a relatively new thing for it. So let's look at the day in detail. Two trades for me on Friday. I left early on Friday, having made the last trade of the day was a great trade. Let's run through what we got up to. So the overnight trade, we drifted down. We're down about 120 points, and then it pushed back up, and the gap was around the 60 point, 50 60 point level at the open, but that was well off the overnight low. The overnight low was 11,120 on the YM, or a little bit lower. I think it might have been 11,15, something like that. So we had a good rally. So really, there was an uptrend in place, even though we were at the midpoint of the overnight range. There was an uptrend in place, so that bodes well for it to continue, should I say, to fill the gap. And now the gap was at 11,239 here. So one of my good ideas at the open was either a push down to test the overnight low, which is around the 11,120 level, or a push up to test the gap fill. Now it had been to both of these levels early in the early hours of the morning, London time. So they were both feasible targets. All I need, as usual, is a bit of a trigger to get us going. And now, as you may know, watching the videos, I'm a little bit cautious at the open at the moment because we've been having a lot of this chop poking through, coming out, chop poking through, and you've either got to sit through a lot of heat or you've got to take a couple of little losses before you get on something. So I'm not diving in off the open. What I'm doing is I'm just waiting for something to become a little bit clearer, and then I'm going to hop on the trend. So open was there, pushed a little bit lower, then immediately pushed higher. Started to pull back. Again, this became a little. It still wasn't clear what was going on. The ticks were still relatively low at this point, so I'm still thinking, okay, if we can take out this low here, then I'm going to look for the 120 overnight low. Good trade, plenty of meat there, plenty of mileage in that. So that was my initial thought, but then I thought, okay, my other hypothesis, of course, is that it's going to fill the gap. But I want to see some more strength before I start taking the long. And for me, this was the strength we saw when we started to push low and we couldn't take out a low. And the ticks were in a bit of an uptrend here. They're a little bit unreliable at the very beginning of the day, but it gives you a slight sentiment of what's going on. But you can see we're an uptrend in ticks here, higher lows, and you know, really not many sellers looking to push this lower. When we got this push through the previous high here, I'm looking for some consolidation or a pullback into this sort of range here that then bursts through. So there's sort of two ways of looking for strength. What we got was, we got consolidation. It held here for quite a while. It had one little probe lower about 3 minutes into the consolidation, but quickly bought and was held there. And you can match this consolidation by looking at the tape and seeing relatively aggressive buyers, not aggressive in taking offers, but they were just sitting there on bids. They were getting filled, then coming up a few ticks, then lifting. So you could see that the market was actually holding there. And so that's a good cue for me. I'm seeing continually higher ticks. There's nothing explosive here, but there's mileage. There's 40 ticks. Excuse me. There's 20 ticks of target. There's the gap. Um, there's the overnight highs for a secondary target, and the cash gap is probably around here equivalent. So some nice upside targets to go for. Downside risk, don't want it if it's going to come back into the range. I think I've said before, we don't mind a little spike lower, a slight spike lower, but I don't want it to start any candles closing under the range, because if that happens, then it's fake out territory. We can always come out and go back in again if it looks like it's doing the shuffle on us. That's the main thing. We just want to manage the risk, but really, the long is here, the stop is here, and the targets are going to be here, here, and here, and then we can potentially hold a runner if there's any more mileage in it to the upside. So that worked out quite nicely. It pushed up. It gave us our first targets, which was great. Second push up, it just failed, and that was the cue for me, really. If it can't push up again, I took off another batch there. I'm left with one more little batch, and I gave that a bit of room. I probably should have taken it all out there, but I didn't. Came back and I took that out at break even. So 2/3 of the position was a lovely 20 tick profit, and 1/3 of it was scratch. So no problem there. But I just wanted to wait for that little strength bit of consolidation before I took the trade. I'm not going to be late into it here because there's not enough meat in it, but I just want to see this hold for 3 or 4 minutes before I take the trade, and my risk is there. There is potential for it to just pull back one more time. Perhaps that's why you want your stop just below that last high. So that was the first trade. Great little start to the day. Second trade, I'm looking for the deeper pullback, which is obviously, as I've talked about before, is the cycle of the market. And in fact, I think it was Tuesday, I'm going to go through Tuesday's trades. It might have been Wednesday. We'll go through those because it's a really good cycle trade. And I talked about how to use something like a stochastic or an RSI or a CCI, and how to make that work for your setups rather than trying to find setups from that indicator. But anyway, I'm looking for the deeper pullback for a further push higher. We've got the pullback to the VWAP. Lovely setup, and it coincided with that prior support that we played with earlier. Wasn't far off the high level. So all in all, lovely cluster of support. What am I looking for? I'm looking for that pop to go in. And to be honest, I thought it was this here. I took the long here. When I saw this pop, I took the long here because I draw my trend line in, excuse my drawing. It just popped up and I was in there. So took a little bit of heat on that as it came down. I was happy to stay in while this VWAP stayed intact. But I must say, I was getting a little bit concerned about it. I thought it just done the shuffle on us. But we've got the pop straight out, and then I'm all out at the prior high, because normally I would look for extended targets, but I wasn't happy about the trade. I'd misjudged the entry, just about kept in with my stop, almost stopped out on that, but just about kept him. It just took out that low, but immediately popped back up again. So you're okay to hold on to that, but I was ready to definitely scale out some if we started to go under that VWAP, if not all. So I felt lucky that I got on the end of that. So I closed it all as we tagged this high, and it flushed, and it pretty much gave us it was about here. You can see the high ticks, but more importantly, the next trade, which was the trade of the day and probably the trade of the week for me, was reversing that pretty quickly based on technicals in the chart, the fact that we couldn't push through the gap, we pushed lower immediately, and also the fact that news had come out that Ireland were looking for a bailout from the EU. Now, I don't normally trade news as such, But if I see news that comes out that could potentially reprice the market, and I mean reprice, I mean there's a new value to the market, something like something that's pretty fundamental to the economy, or something that's terrorist related, or bombing or something pretty significant. I'm not really looking for figures or economic data, because a bad number may mean something else in another market, which may be correlated, which may mean equities may go up. If you see, there's so much intercorrelation between the economic data that comes out. It's difficult to judge based on just what the news is. I like to read the price action, but I will trade on what the news is. If the news is obviously bearish or bullish, and now this was obviously a bearish piece of news. Um, so what I'm looking for, I'm not immediately looking to go short. What I'm looking for then is a trigger to go short, and I'm definitely not going to go long. Now I could misinterpret this news, but as long as I'm managing my risk, then all I'm doing is slightly pushing the odds in my favour. Now the news could be false, it could be anything, but if I'm seeing some chart weakness and I'm seeing a trigger to get short and I've got that news, nothing's a certainty, but at least I've got a lot more things on my side that's worth having a look at the short. And that's exactly what happened. We double topped here, bing bing, couldn't get through the gap, couldn't get to the overnight high, pushed lower pretty significantly, and it was about here the news came out and it pushed lower. We got this little gift of a bounce. It was just enough for us to get in short. We got in short. Where's the stop going to be? Listen, if this news is wrong and it's bullish, then the market isn't going to try and take highs again. So I can afford to have a nice tight stop on this. The entry, you can anywhere between, as it's starting to pull down, anywhere on this bar here is absolute perfect entry. You want your stop above there because you want the momentum to suddenly push it down. You don't want it to be loitering around. If the news is as bearish as you think it is, then there's going to be an immediate reaction, then there's going to be a later reaction. If you're getting the news at the same time as everyone else, then people need time to come in with the sell orders. People need time to digest it. There will be a reaction, but then there's going to be some time, there's going to be some secondary reaction. That's when you get your second and third waves of selling. And that's particularly true for something like when 9/11 came out, or 7/7, or anything particularly related to the global economy or the global security, then you will get several waves. But really what you're looking for is to jump on that wave, and if you're right, you're going to be right immediately. So that's why the stock can afford to be that tight. So that was me in with a reasonable bit of size, because the risk was limited, because the technicals looked great, because there was a little bit of a catalyst of a potential reprice from the news, and boom, that was it. We pushed down. Uh, Now, I didn't make the most of the trade as I could have done, purely because I thought we'd get more of a sell-off. We got this sell-off and we got a low tick reading, started to bounce up here. So that's my first scale. Now that's a nice 30 tick profit, and I've still got a good chunk left. I'm looking to hold this now for a runner. I'm looking for the secondary wave of selling to come in, and I'm looking to capitalize this. I know I've got extended targets because the overnight low was so far away, so I know there's another 50-60 points of downside, and then if that breaks, I know there's further to go with that as well. So I know it's not unfeasible for us to see much more downside. And of course, coming from such a high level, you've got a lot more meat in the trade to go before it even becomes before it even takes out today's lows, if you like. So it's a great entry, and it's a great time to try and push for those extended targets if you can, when everything lines up perfectly. So as usual, I take a first scale, this time at 30 points. So holding on, small little pullback as you expect. Classic trade again. I go on about this, but it does work time after time. If I wasn't in the short, I would be definitely taking that with size. Pull back on the ticks. You've got the low tick reading, you've got this little flush lower that takes out all these longs, all these people who have been buying for up here and who haven't got out here. They're all out. It's pushed it lower. You've got a little tick pull back to zero. There's your second wave. This time I came all out in this candle here, took out this low. We didn't do a low tick reading. We got a good flush in volume, and I thought that was it. So that was all me. I was all out just here. Time's running out here. So fantastic trade for me, that great end to the week. Missed the secondary and third wave of selling, but happy to grab a really good chunk of that. Good trading, guys, and we're back with another video soon.